You are not broken. Introduction. Have you ever felt like you're walking through life with a heavy weight? No one sees, like a quiet voice inside you whispers, "You're not enough," even when you try your hardest. What if I told you that? This voice is a liar. What if everything you've been told about who you are, your mistakes, your failures, your scars, was not a sentence, but an invitation? This book isn't about fixing what's broken, because here's the truth. You are not broken. You are whole. You are worthy. You are powerful beyond measure. And the journey you're about to take will change everything you thought you knew about yourself. You will meet the parts of you that have been hiding in the shadows, the wounds you've tried to forget, and the incredible light that's been inside you all along. This isn't just a book. It's a lifeline, a mirror, a call to rise from the ashes of doubt and pain into the fierce, radiant person you were always meant to be. So if you've ever felt lost, unworthy, or too damaged to heal, keep reading. And the greatest transformation of your life starts now. Chapter 1. The Day You Almost Gave Up. There's a quiet moment in life that feels like the end. No sirens, no fireworks, just the unbearable stillness of one more thing going wrong when you thought you had nothing left to lose. Maybe it came to you in the form of a job rejection, a betrayal that shattered something sacred, or just the weight of pretending to be okay when you're barely holding on. For Anthony, a former paramedic from Detroit, that moment came in a parking lot after a long shift where he sat in silence, watching raindrops hit the windshield, too numb to cry, too tired to care. But what no one tells you, what society never teaches, is that these breaking points are not evidence that you're broken. They're the doorway. They're the sacred pause before the soul reshapes itself into something stronger, truer, more aligned with who you really are. You see, the world trains us to fear our cracks, to cover them up, to rush past the pain and get back to normal. But maybe it's those very fractures that let the light in. Maybe the pain isn't proof that you're damaged, it's proof that you're still alive, still becoming. What if the day you almost gave up was actually the day something ancient and powerful began to wake up in you? Something not afraid of the dark, something not ashamed of the scars. You are not broken, you are being broken open, and from that opening, your truest self is rising. Chapter 2. The Lie That Lives in Silence. There's a lie that burrows itself into us when we're too young to name it, and it grows louder the longer we stay quiet. It says, you're too much, or maybe not enough, that your emotions are inconvenient, that your voice is a burden, that if people really knew you, they'd leave. It doesn't come in the form of loud insults, it arrives in glances, in silence at the dinner table, in teachers who praised you only when you performed, in parents who loved you conditionally. And over time, you begin to confuse invisibility with safety. You shrink in rooms that require your light. You laugh at things that hurt, and you apologize for simply being. This lie, this ancient deception, feeds on your silence. It convinces you that hiding is survival, that speaking your truth will lead to abandonment, that vulnerability is weakness. But the truth is, your silence is costing you your life. The longer you stay quiet, the more disconnected you become from your own soul. And somewhere deep inside, the real you is still waiting to be heard, not the filtered version. Not the polished one, but the raw, cracked, honest self, who has something sacred to say. You don't heal by pretending. You heal by reclaiming your voice, by telling the truth, even if it trembles. The lie wants you small, but your healing wants you whole, and it begins the moment you decide that your voice deserves to be heard. Chapter 3. Trauma doesn't define you. There's a moment, often unnoticed, when a person quietly begins to believe that what happened to them is who they are, a whispered lie that trauma tries to carve into the soul like a permanent scar. For Maya, a 42-year-old teacher from Arizona, that belief grew roots after years of childhood neglect and a marriage that mirrored the chaos she once tried to escape. She wore resilience like armor, but inside, every failure felt like proof that she was broken beyond repair. What she didn't know, and what so many forgets, is that trauma is an experience, not an identity. It shapes you, yes, but it does not own you. The world may label you, your memories may haunt you, but you are still the one who chooses what meaning they carry. Your nervous system isn't betraying you, it's trying to protect you. That anxious flutter in your chest, that numbness in your limbs, that's your body remembering. But healing begins the moment you decide to remember something deeper, that beneath the pain is a self untouched by trauma, a self still whole, still holy. You are not the worst thing that ever happened to you. You are the one who lived through it, the one still here, still breathing, still rising. Let this be the day you draw a line not to erase your past, but to declare it can no longer name you. You are not your trauma. You are the space where healing begins. Chapter 4. Shame is not your shadow. Shame doesn't scream, it whispers, wraps itself around your identity, like fog around a mirror, blurring who you truly are until all you see are the things you regret, the moments you wish never happened, the parts of yourself you hide from the world. For Danielle, a high-achieving executive in Chicago, shame showed up every time someone praised her because deep down, she believed she had everyone fooled. Her confidence was a mask, her laughter a defense, and beneath it all was a voice she'd heard since childhood. You're not good enough. You're too much. You're not worthy. But here's the truth, shame doesn't want you to know. It is not your shadow, it's a costume, a heavy one, something you were handed, not something you are. Shame is often inherited, from wounded parents, from culture, from systems that made you feel like love had to be earned, or that softness was weakness. But your soul is older than shame. Your essence existed before anyone ever taught you to hide. The moment you start speaking your truth, the costume starts to fall away. The moment you meet your past with compassion instead of judgment, the shame loses its grip. You are not too much. You are not less than. You are not what happened to you. Shame may have shaped your silence, but it cannot hold your light unless you let it, and the moment you stop feeding it, you remember, you were not broken. You were simply unlearning who the world told you to be. Chapter 5. The truth about worthiness. Somewhere along the way, someone convinced you that worth is something to be earned, that if you're productive enough, beautiful enough, selfless enough, then maybe you'll deserve to breathe easily, to be loved fully, to take up space without apology. But that's a lie crafted by generations too wounded to remember their own light. Worthiness is not a finish line. It's your birthright. It was never about what you did, what you looked like, or who approved of you. It's in your first breath. It's in your laughter, your longing, your ability to break and rebuild and break again. Madison, a high-achieving executive from Phoenix, spent a decade chasing success only to collapse one morning in her luxury apartment, unable to find peace in the very life she thought would prove she was enough. That's the tragedy of disowned worth. It doesn't matter how far you run if the voice inside still whispers, you don't belong. But here's the truth, deep, holy, and immovable. You are not a project to be completed. You are a soul to be remembered. Nothing you do can make you more worthy. Nothing you fail at can make you less. You were already whole before you were ever told otherwise. And if no one ever said it to you before, hear it now, not just with your ears, but with your whole body. You are enough. You are worthy. You are already home. Chapter 6. The inner child still waits. Beneath every adult who feels stuck, ashamed, or never quite enough, there is a younger version still waiting to be seen, not with judgment or critique, but with the love they never received when it mattered most. That child isn't just a memory. They are a living echo within you, quietly shaping how you respond, what you fear, how you love, and what you believe you deserve. For years, Kyle, a 42-year-old father and engineer in Chicago, found himself exploding at small things: his daughter spilling juice, his wife asking if he was okay, even a co-worker's innocent suggestion. He told himself he had an anger issue, but in therapy, a breakthrough came not from managing emotions, but from meeting the wounded 7-year-old boy inside who never learned it was safe to feel. That boy had grown up in a house where emotions were met with silence or sarcasm, where being vulnerable meant being weak, and crying meant being alone. That boy learned early to hide his feelings behind logic, to silence his needs, and to become the strong one, the reliable one, the unbreakable one. But emotions don't disappear. They wait, and they whisper through the cracks in adulthood, begging for reunion. This is not weakness, it is a sacred invitation. Every time you overreact, shut down, feel unworthy, avoid love, or chase it too hard, that child is calling out, and not for pity but for protection, for love, for repenting. You are not broken for carrying wounds from the past. You are human for surviving them. But survival is not the same as healing. Healing begins the moment you turn inward and sit beside the younger you with gentleness, patience, and the kind of fierce tenderness no one gave you. Not to fix them, but to finally let them feel safe, wanted, and enough. Some of the most powerful breakthroughs in your life won't come from discipline or books. They'll come from giving that child inside a voice and listening without interruption. Imagine looking into the eyes of your 5-year-old self and saying, "I'm here now. I won't leave you again." That's where your true power begins, not in who you've become, but in who you're willing to return for. The world may never have given you what you needed back then, but now you can. And when you do, the shame melts, the triggers soften, and the fear of never being enough transforms into the quiet knowing, I am here, I am whole, I am home. Chapter 7. When pain becomes identity. There's a moment in every life, quiet, subtle, often unnoticed, when pain stops being something we carry and starts becoming something we are. You don't plan for it, and you rarely see it coming. It happens after years of silent heartbreaks, betrayals that stole your breath, or childhoods where safety was a luxury and love felt conditional. Slowly, pain takes root, and without realizing it, you start introducing yourself through your wounds. I'm the anxious one. I'm the failure. I'm the one who was left. You wear it like a badge, not because you want to suffer, but because in a world that didn't protect you, pain was at least consistent. It stayed when others didn't. It gave your story edges. But what no one told you on, what you must know now, is that pain was never meant to be a mirror. It's a messenger. It knocks on your door not to define you, but to awaken you. Jasmine, a 41-year-old nurse from Atlanta, spent her life caring for others but secretly believed she was unworthy of being cared for herself. Every relationship ended in abandonment. Every silence felt like punishment. And over time, she began to call herself too much or not enough, depending on the day. Her pain became her name. It shaped her posture, her choices, her dreams. But one day, while helping a terminal patient take his last breath, he whispered, "Don't wait your whole life to feel alive." That sentence cracked something open. She wept for the self she had never met, the self beneath the sorrow. Because here's the truth. Pain can teach you, but it cannot define you. Identity rooted in suffering becomes a prison, even if it once felt like armor. And the scariest thing is not letting go of pain. It's imagining who you are without it. But that's where freedom lives. It lives in the unraveling, in the terrifying, sacred question, if I am not what hurt me, then who am I? That's where the real journey begins. Not in fixing, not in hiding, but in remembering. Beneath the grief, the abandonment, the trauma, you still exist, whole, unshattered. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your divorce. You are not the silence you were raised in, nor the chaos you endured. Your identity is deeper than any scar. When you stop letting pain introduce you, you begin to reintroduce yourself to life, not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as someone reborn, not because the pain disappeared, but because it no longer owns you. The soul doesn't forget who you are, it just waits for you to remember. And once you do, the pain doesn't vanish, but it loses its throne, and you finally take your place. Chapter 8. Your mind is not the enemy. It's easy to feel betrayed by your own mind, like it's this unruly beast that runs wild with worry, doubt, and criticism just when you need calm the most. Imagine Lisa, a 29-year-old graphic designer from Seattle, lying awake at 2 a.m., her thoughts a relentless tide whispering, "You're not good enough. You'll fail again. What if they see the real you?" The mind feels like a war zone sometimes, a place where your biggest enemy hides inside your skull. But here's the truth, no one teaches us. Your mind is not the enemy. It's not a traitor, a saboteur, or a cruel prison guard. It's a messenger, an ancient survival mechanism trying to keep you safe in a world that often feels unsafe. The problem isn't the mind itself, but how much power we give to its stories, how much we mistake its fearful chatter for reality. Your mind is wired to protect you. It's constantly scanning for threats, rehearsing worst-case scenarios, and replaying memories to warn you. What it lacks, however, is context, compassion, and a big-picture view of your present moment. It operates from a place of habit and fear, not love or truth. So when your mind tells you you're broken, or you'll never be enough, it's speaking from a place of survival, not your soul's deepest reality. Learning to relate differently to your mind means stepping back from the flood of thoughts and noticing them as passing clouds instead of absolute truths. It means recognizing that anxiety, doubt, and self-criticism are not signs of failure but signals that you're alive and healing. The journey begins when you stop fighting your mind and start listening to it. Without judgment, when you offer curiosity instead of resistance. What if your fearful thoughts are just the mind's way of begging for your attention, your kindness, and your courage? What if instead of silencing that inner voice, you invited it to sit with you, to share its worries, and then gently reminded it that you are safe right now? This isn't about ignoring your mind or suppressing difficult feelings, but learning to witness them with grace and steady presence. Meditation, mindfulness, and compassionate self-talk become tools for building that relationship, like tuning into a friend who's been scared and misunderstood for too long. And the more you practice, the more space you create between you and the thoughts that once ruled you. Suddenly, the mind's stories lose their grip. They become just one part of your experience rather than the whole. Remember, the mind is a powerful tool when guided by your awareness, but a tyrant when left unchecked. The power to change your relationship with your mind is a radical act of self-love, a declaration that you will no longer be defined by fear or limiting beliefs. Instead, you choose to reclaim your peace, your presence, and your power. So, when that familiar inner critic shows up next time, don't believe everything it says, but don't silence it either. Listen with compassion, thank it for trying to protect you, and then gently guide your attention back to the truth of who you are beyond thought. Whole, worthy, and deeply alive. Your mind is not your enemy. It is a part of you that's waiting to be understood and embraced. How would your life change if you stopped fighting your mind and started making peace with it? Chapter 9. The Myth of Being Fixed. We all grow up hearing the same story. Something's wrong with us, and the goal is to fix it, to patch the cracks, smooth the edges, and present a flawless version to the world. Maybe you've spent years chasing this fix, jumping from therapist to self-help book, from habit to habit, hoping each new method would finally make you whole. For James, a mid-30s teacher from Atlanta, it looked like a checklist of improvements. Get rid of anxiety, stop doubting, control the anger. Every little breakthrough was quickly followed by a new flaw to conquer, a new part of himself he wanted to change or hide. The pressure to be fixed like a machine that only works if perfectly calibrated can feel suffocating. But what if the real truth is the opposite? What if you were never broken to begin with, and therefore never actually needed fixing? The idea that you must be fixed is a myth born from a deep misunderstanding of what it means to be human. It's a story we tell ourselves because it's easier to believe in a problem with a solution than to sit with the beautiful, messy complexity of who we are. The cracks, the shadows, the parts we try to hide, they're not errors in the blueprint. They are the very things that give you depth, resilience, and uniqueness. Think about a tree. It grows tall not by being perfectly straight, but by bending with the wind, by weathering storms, by surviving droughts. Its scars are proof not of damage but of life lived fully. Similarly, your perceived flaws are the map of your survival and your strength. To believe you need to be fixed is to deny the sacred journey of becoming yourself. It's to miss the profound truth that your growth isn't about erasing parts of you, but about integrating them, honoring your fears as guides, your pain as teachers, and your imperfections as the source of your authentic beauty. When you stop chasing the illusion of fixed, you create space for real transformation. Transformation that's less about perfection and more about peace. That peace comes when you stop battling against your nature and start embracing it. When you stop trying to force yourself into someone else's mold and start listening to the quiet voice inside that says, you are enough exactly as you are. This doesn't mean you stop growing or stop healing. It means you heal on your terms, in your time, with compassion instead of judgment. It means celebrating the parts of you that have been misunderstood or marginalized and giving them permission to speak their truth. When James finally realized this, something shifted deep inside. He stopped striving to erase the anxious parts of himself and instead invited curiosity and kindness into that space. He learned to recognize anxiety not as a flaw to fix but as a messenger trying to be heard. That shift changed everything, not because the anxiety disappeared overnight, but because James stopped fighting himself and began to walk alongside his own experience. You are not a broken machine waiting for repair. You are a living, breathing soul learning to dance with life's complexity. The myth of being fixed keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-judgment and striving, but the truth of your being is freedom, acceptance, and love without conditions. So, what would it feel like to drop the quest to be fixed? What if your wholeness has been here all along, patiently waiting for you to come home to yourself? Today, give yourself permission to be a beautifully unfinished work, not broken, but becoming. You are not broken. You are whole beyond measure. Chapter 10. The body remembers. The soul restores. There is a moment in almost every healing journey when you realize that your mind doesn't hold all the answers. Sometimes the deepest stories are etched, not in your thoughts but in your body, in the silent memory of muscles clenched tight for decades, in the breath you hold when no one's looking, in the ache beneath the surface that refuses to be named. For Alina, a woman from Atlanta who survived childhood neglect, therapy was a lifeline, but it was only when she began to notice the sharpness in her shoulders, the unyielding tension in her jaw, that the real work began. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. It's a truth that modern science is beginning to confirm. Trauma isn't just an event in time, it's an imprint, a biological script played over and over in the nervous system long after the danger has passed. That's why sometimes you cry without knowing why your heart races when there's no threat, or why certain places and sounds make you feel unsafe even when logic insists you're okay. Your body carries the map of your pain, your survival, and your resilience. It's been your first and last home through storms that words could never fully capture. And yet, here's the miraculous paradox: while the body remembers, the soul also has the power to restore. Healing is not about erasing the past, but learning to live with it in a new way, where those old imprints lose their grip on your present. When you breathe deeply into the tension, when you allow movement without judgment, when you sit in stillness and listen to what your body is really saying, you give yourself permission to reclaim that space. The nervous system can be rewired, the heart softened, the spirit lifted. Practices like mindful breathing, gentle yoga, somatic therapy, and meditation are more than trends. They are sacred tools that teach the body to trust again, to release what no longer serves, and to hold you gently as you unfold. Healing becomes a dance between honoring your history and embracing your becoming. The scars you carry are not stains of shame, but marks of survival, each one telling a story of a soul that refused to be extinguished. So, when you feel overwhelmed by the heaviness lodged deep inside, remember that you are not broken beyond repair. You are whole in the process of becoming whole again. Your body is not your enemy. It is the canvas on which your story has been written, and with care, patience, and love, your soul is the artist who can restore the masterpiece. This restoration is not always easy. It asks you to be vulnerable, to sit with discomfort, to trust in rhythms unseen. But every small breath, every moment of self-compassion, every step taken toward embodied awareness is a revolution. You are learning to come home to yourself, to feel safe in your own skin, and in that sacred return, your soul rises like the dawn, soft but unstoppable. How might your life change if you stopped resisting the messages of your body and started listening with open arms? What if the restoration you seek has been waiting in your own breath all along? Chapter 11. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness often feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, terrifying, uncertain, and almost impossible when the wounds are deep and the scars are raw. For Maya, a teacher in Atlanta who endured years of betrayal by someone she trusted, forgiveness felt like a betrayal of her own pain, as if to forgive meant to erase the truth of what happened or to welcome it all back inside. But forgiveness is not forgetting. It's not pretending the hurt never happened, nor is it a signal to return to broken patterns or unsafe places. It's a radical act of courage that sets you free, not the person who wronged you, but you. Forgiveness is the sacred refusal to carry the heavy chains of resentment and rage that bind your heart and steal your peace. It's the recognition that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It doesn't mean you condone the harm, excuse the injustice, or erase the memory of pain. It means you choose to reclaim your life from the shadows of past wounds. When you forgive, you create space for healing, for growth, for a peace so deep that it reshapes your relationship with yourself and the world. It's a boundary that says, I honor my suffering, but I refuse to let it own me. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, a chance to breathe again, to love again, to live, without the weight of yesterday dragging you down. The truth is, forgetting isn't human, but forgiving is divine. It is a journey from victimhood to victory, from being broken by others to becoming whole within yourself. In the act of forgiveness, you rise stronger, wiser, freer, and finally, understand that you are not broken by what was done to you, but healed by what you choose to release. Chapter 12. The Mirror of Self-Compassion. Have you ever looked into a mirror and struggled to meet your own gaze? Not just because of a bad hair day or tired eyes, but because there's a deeper reflection staring back, a version of yourself, weighed down by judgment, regret, and unspoken harshness that echoes louder than any kind word you might offer another. For decades, Maya, a teacher from Seattle, carried this invisible burden, convinced that her mistakes made her unlovable and that her failures defined her essence. Every morning she battled a relentless inner critic whose voice was so familiar, it felt like her own truth, and every night she whispered apologies to the reflection she barely recognized. But the mirror, as it turns out, holds a sacred invitation, not a sentence, but a chance to transform how we see ourselves. Self-compassion is not about ignoring our flaws or excusing our mistakes. It's about holding ourselves with the same kindness, patience, and understanding we so readily give others. It's about recognizing that to be human is to be imperfect, and that suffering is not a sign of failure but a universal thread connecting us all. When you learn to look into that mirror and meet yourself with love instead of condemnation, something shifts, the heaviness begins to lift, and you start to see the wounds not as marks of shame, but as stories of survival and courage. You realize that the harsh voice inside isn't your enemy, it's a frightened part of you desperately needing care. What if the reflection you feared was actually the doorway to your healing? What if the hardest person to love is precisely the one you must hold most tenderly? This mirror, cracked and imperfect as it is, can show you your true face, one not defined by pain or error, but by resilience, beauty, and an unbreakable spirit. When you practice self-compassion, you give yourself permission to be whole, right here, right now, not someday when you get better or do more. You become your own sanctuary, a safe place where healing begins and from which real strength flows. So today, in that moment before you move on with your day, pause, look deeply into the mirror of your soul and ask, can I hold myself with the same kindness I offer the world? Because the truth is this, you deserve your own compassion as fiercely as you deserve the world's. You are not broken, you are beautifully human, worthy of tenderness, beginning with yourself. Chapter 13. Boundaries are bridges to your soul. There was a moment for Maya, a 29-year-old artist living in Austin, when saying no felt like a betrayal, a threat to her relationships, her career, even her identity. She was the yes person, the fixer, the one everyone leaned on. Until one night, after a friend's third last-minute demand, Maya's phone slipped from her hand and shattered against the hardwood floor, mirroring the exhaustion inside her. In that cracked silence, she realized something profound. Every time she gave away her yes, she lost a piece of herself. Boundaries, she'd been told, were selfish, cold, or even unloving. But what if that was the biggest lie she ever believed? What if boundaries aren't walls to shut people out, but bridges that connect us to the deepest parts of our soul? Setting a boundary isn't about punishment or distance. It's about respect for your energy, your time, your dreams, and your emotional sanctuary. When you say no to others, you say a powerful yes to your inner voice, the one that knows what you need to heal, grow, and thrive. Boundaries teach us to honor our rhythms in a world that demands constant giving and never-ending performance. Without them, we are like rivers diverted from their course, losing clarity and strength as we try to please everyone but ourselves. Maya's journey wasn't easy at first. Friends pushed back, and guilt whispered that she was failing as a daughter, a friend, a partner. But as she practiced holding space for herself, she found that her relationships deepened, not broke. The people who stayed were those who truly saw her, not who she could be for them. Setting boundaries became her sacred act of self-love, a daily declaration that her worth wasn't dependent on how much she sacrificed. In the mirror of those boundaries, she saw herself clearly whole, deserving, and unbreakable. And you, reading this now, carry that same power. Every boundary you draw is not a rejection of others, but a loving invitation to live fully in your truth. So ask yourself, where in your life are you giving too much and losing yourself? What parts of your soul are quietly asking for space to breathe and grow? Boundaries aren't about building walls, they're the bridges that bring you home to yourself. When you protect your energy, you honor the sacredness of your being. You are not broken for needing limits. You are whole because you choose them. The question isn't whether you can set boundaries, it's whether you will finally listen to that soul that's been whispering all along. Chapter 14. The Energy of Enough. In a world obsessed with more money, more status, more likes, more approval, it's easy to forget the quiet power of enough. Imagine Lisa, a marketing executive in Chicago, who spent years chasing promotions, always pushing harder, thinking that if she just achieved the next milestone, she would finally breathe easy, feel worthy, feel whole. But every new achievement came with a heavier, wetter, creeping exhaustion, a gnawing emptiness that no accolade could fill. She was running on a treadmill set to a speed she didn't choose, fueled by a belief that she was never quite enough, as she was. This is the hidden tragedy of modern life, the energy of lack disguised as ambition. We live in a scarcity mindset where enough feels like a distant dream, a fleeting luxury we can't afford. But what if the opposite is true? What if the real power, the energy that transforms despair into peace, frustration into found not in the endless pursuit of more, but in the radical acceptance of enough? Enough doesn't mean complacency. It doesn't mean settling for less or giving up on growth. Instead, it's a deep, unshakable knowing that you are already whole, already worthy, already enough, exactly as you are. This energy shifts everything. It stops the exhausting chase and opens space for true presence where you can celebrate small victories, find gratitude in the mundane, and reconnect with your inner wellspring of peace and creativity. When you embrace enough, your life stops being a constant battle against yourself and the world, and becomes a dance with the flow of what is. The energy of enough is a radical rebellion against the culture of never, a sacred permission slip to love yourself fully, without conditions or deadlines. It's what happens when you say, I have done enough today. I am enough now. And in that surrender, you find freedom. This freedom is not external. It begins as a soft revolution within your heart, a quiet uprising of self-compassion that grows stronger with every breath. You start to notice the beauty in your imperfections, the lessons in your failures, and the strength in your vulnerability. You realize that chasing more was never the point. The point was to uncover the treasure buried beneath your endless striving, your own infinite, radiant worth. The energy of enough transforms your relationship with time, with success, and with love itself. It frees you to live from a place of abundance, where your value is intrinsic, not earned, where joy is accessible, not postponed, where peace is a home you carry inside, not a destination you chase. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, a daily choice to meet yourself with kindness instead of judgment, to rest instead of resist, to be present instead of restless. It means trusting that who you are right now is exactly who you need to be, and that the universe doesn't want you to survive on scraps of self-worth, but to thrive in the fullness of your being. So ask yourself, what would it feel like to stop running and start resting, to stop proving and start living, to let go of the myth that you have to do more to be more? The energy of enough is waiting for you, quiet, powerful, healing. It's the light that breaks through your exhaustion and whispers, you are whole, you are worthy, you are enough. When you begin to believe that truth deeply, your whole life begins to shift, because true success, real peace, and lasting joy are born not from more but from enough. Chapter 15. When you stop proving, you start living. For years, Emily carried a weight that no one could see, a relentless pressure to prove herself worthy, valuable, and capable, not just to others, but to herself. She was the first in her family to graduate college, the one who worked 2 jobs to pay the bills, the friend who always said yes, the colleague who stayed late, all driven by an invisible voice whispering, you have to earn your place. This need to prove is a familiar story for so many of us, shaped by childhood expectations, societal pressures, and internalized doubts that scream louder the quieter we try to become. It's exhausting. It's a grind that steals joy, poisons peace, and convinces us that our value is conditional, tied to achievements, accolades, or approval. But here's a truth that could shift everything. When you stop proving, you start living. Imagine what it would feel like to lay down the armor of constant performance and meet each day from a place of belonging, not earning, from a sense of being enough, not needing to prove you are. This doesn't mean you stop striving or growing, it means you stop using your life as a report card for your worth. The moment you stop proving is the moment you reclaim your power, your freedom, your authenticity. In that space, you no longer live in reaction to others' expectations, but respond from the depths of your true self. You begin to dance with life instead of wrestling with it, to create from a well of inner peace instead of a thirst for validation. For Emily, the turning point wasn't a sudden epiphany, but a quiet unraveling. Sitting alone one evening, exhausted from trying to be everything for everyone, she asked herself, what if I don't have to prove anything at all? The answer didn't come in shouts, but in the gentle realization that her worth was never up for debate. She began setting boundaries, saying no without guilt, and embracing her imperfections as proof of her humanity, not signs of failure. Freedom followed, not because she had less to do, but because she stopped carrying the burden of others' judgments. This chapter isn't an excuse for complacency or laziness. It's a call to recognize that your life's value isn't tied to a checklist or a resume. It's woven into the very fabric of your existence. When you stop proving, you start living fully, boldly, freely, and deeply connected to who you are beneath the masks. So, ask yourself, what parts of your life are you proving right now? And what might open up if you simply stopped? The invitation is here, the permission is yours, and the moment to live, not prove, is now. Chapter 16. Choosing yourself is not selfish. For years, Emma, a schoolteacher from Ohio, believed that putting her own needs first was a selfish act, a betrayal of the people she loved. She poured everything into others, her students, her aging parents, her friends, and even strangers. But inside, there was a quiet fracture growing, a relentless voice whispering that she was invisible, exhausted, and disconnected from herself. One night, after yet another day of saying yes when she desperately wanted to say no, she collapsed into bed, tears burning her cheeks, overwhelmed by guilt for even thinking about putting herself first. It was in that raw moment, broken and weary, that Emma began to realize something many of us don't dare admit. Choosing yourself freely, choosing yourself is not selfish. It's an act of courage, radical love, and survival. The myth that self-care is indulgent or self-centered is one designed to keep you small, quiet, and available for everyone else's needs except your own. But what happens when you ignore your own soul's call for nourishment? You fade, you lose the energy to be present, the passion to keep going, and the clarity to make decisions that honor your truth. Choosing yourself is the first step toward reclaiming your power and living authentically. It means setting boundaries without shame, saying no without apology, and embracing the discomfort that comes with change. It means recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and that filling your own well is essential, not optional. It's a gift to those around you, because when you are whole and aligned, your love flows from a place of abundance rather than depletion. Choosing yourself teaches others how to respect your time, your feelings, and your presence. It dismantles toxic patterns of codependency, people-pleasing, and martyrdom that silently steal your joy and freedom. And most importantly, it reminds you that your life is yours to lead, not a script written by the expectations of others. You might fear that putting yourself first will cost you relationships or approval, but real connection is born from honesty, not sacrifice. When you honor your needs, you attract people who value you, fully, flaws, boundaries, and all. Choosing yourself is a revolution against the culture that demands your exhaustion and invisibility. It's the quiet rebellion of a soul refusing to be diminished. So, the next time guilt creeps in when you say no, or when you carve out time to rest or pursue what lights you up, remember this: you are not being selfish, you are being true. True to your worth, your dreams, your peace. You are standing in the sacred space of self-respect, where your greatest strength lives, and from that place, you don't just survive, you thrive. So ask yourself, what would happen if, starting today, you chose yourself without apology? What doors might open if you honored your soul's whispers as fiercely as you honor the needs of others? The truth is, choosing yourself is the most loving thing you can do, not just for you, but for everyone whose life you touch. Chapter 17. The Sacred Art of Stillness. In a world that never stops demanding more productivity, more connection, more noise, stillness has become the rarest and most radical act of courage. Imagine Maya, a marketing executive in Chicago, whose phone buzzes every few minutes with urgent messages, deadlines, and the never-ending hum of social media. One night, after hours of scrolling and shallow interactions, she finds herself unable to sleep, heart racing, mind swirling with worry. She realizes that in the quest to stay connected and relevant, she's lost touch with the most essential connection, the one inside her own soul. Stillness isn't just silence. It's a sacred space where your soul whispers its deepest truths, where the constant chatter of fear and doubt quiets enough for your real self to be heard. The irony is, many of us fear this silence because it reveals what we've been running from: loneliness, grief, shame, but it's also the place where healing begins. Psychologists have shown that stillness reduces anxiety, lowers cortisol levels, and rewires the brain for greater resilience. Yet spiritually, it's even more profound. Stillness reconnects you to the eternal presence within, the part of you that is unchanging, unshakable, and endlessly compassionate. Eckhart Tolle said, "Stillness is where creativity and solutions to problems are found. It's where clarity replaces confusion, where you meet yourself without judgment, where wounds stop screaming and begin to soften." Learning the sacred art of stillness means learning to be with discomfort without running, allowing your mind and body to rest, to breathe, and to remember that you are more than your thoughts, your pain, or your past. This practice isn't about escaping life's challenges. It's about meeting them with grace from a place of calm and power. Start small: 5 minutes of silence, a slow, mindful breath, a moment to notice the sensations in your body. Over time, these moments expand, becoming your refuge, your anchor, your sanctuary. When you claim stillness as a sacred act, you reclaim your own energy, your own peace, and your own power. You begin to see that in the hush of your soul, you are always enough, always whole, always deeply loved. The question is, will you dare to sit with yourself long enough to hear that truth? Will you honor the sacred art of stillness as the gateway to your freedom? Chapter 18. You are allowed to begin again. There's a sacred weight that comes with endings, the silence of a door closing, the echo of dreams that didn't unfold the way you imagined, the sting of plans shattered, relationships severed, or a life that no longer feels like yours. For many, that weight becomes a prison, a silent sentence to carry the past as if it were a scarlet letter branded onto the soul. Jenna, a woman from Asheville, North Carolina, spent years believing she was too broken to start over, too flawed to rewrite her story. After a painful divorce and a career that dissolved with the economy, she felt like she had failed not once but permanently, like the world had moved on without her. Yet, what Jenna and so many of us don't realize is that the permission to begin again is not something you earn. It is your birthright. Every sunrise whispers the same truth, that no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how many times you've stumbled, the path to rebirth is always there, waiting for you to step forward. To begin again is not to erase the past, but to honor it, acknowledging the pain, the lessons, the growth, and choosing courage over comfort, faith over fear. It's the fierce declaration that your story isn't over just because a chapter ended badly, that the canvas is never truly blank because you carry the colors of every experience within you. Starting anew means dismantling the old beliefs that keep you chained, those voices that say, "You're too late," or "You don't deserve happiness," or "This is all there is." It means forgiving yourself for the missteps, the detours, the moments when you couldn't see the light through the dark. It means reclaiming your power, piece by piece, one breath at a time, until the heavy weight of not enough becomes lighter than hope. The truth is, beginning again requires bravery, the kind that doesn't always roar but whispers, "I will try one more time." It asks you to lean into uncertainty, to trust that the broken pieces can be woven into something whole and beautiful, that your heart, though bruised, still beats with infinite possibility. When you allow yourself this fresh start, you tap into a deeper well of resilience than you ever knew existed. You become the author of your own redemption, the artist painting over the shadows with new colors of joy, peace, and purpose. So if you find yourself standing at the edge of what feels like an ending, know this: you are allowed to begin again. You are not bound by your past mistakes, your pain, or the expectations of others. You are free to rewrite your story in a way that honors the fullness of who you are becoming. The question is not whether you have failed enough times to deserve a fresh start. It's whether you will give yourself permission to rise again and again, because that is the true measure of strength. So take a deep breath, step forward. The world awaits the gift of your new beginning, and inside you burns a fire no setback can ever extinguish. Chapter 19. Becoming the healer you needed. There's a sacred, almost paradoxical power in becoming the healer you once desperately needed. A power born from the wounds you thought would shatter you, but instead forged you into someone stronger, wiser, and deeply compassionate. Think about Jamie, a young woman from Atlanta, whose childhood was marked by silence and absence, whose cries for help echoed unanswered in empty rooms. For years, she believed that pain was a prison she could never escape, that the scars she carried made her unlovable and broken beyond repair. But one rainy afternoon, after yet another moment of self-doubt and despair, Jamie decided that if no one was going to heal her, she would have to become the healer she never had. This decision didn't erase the past, it honored it. It didn't pretend that the suffering wasn't real, it transformed it into a roadmap for empathy and resilience. Becoming the healer you needed means looking into the darkest parts of your story without flinching. Not to relive the pain, but to reclaim your power. It means recognizing that every crack, every fracture, every silent scream is part of your unique medicine, not a mark of weakness but a badge of courage. Healing yourself is not a linear journey. It's a dance between acceptance and growth, between grief and hope, between vulnerability and fierce self-love. When you step into that role, you're no longer a victim waiting for rescue. You become a beacon guiding others out of their own darkness. You understand that your story matters not despite your wounds, but because of them. You become a living testament that brokenness is not the end but the beginning of a profound transformation. In embracing your scars, you give permission to others to do the same. The healer inside you awakens when you stop hiding and start holding space for your own pain, when you treat your heart with the same kindness you wish to offer the world. It's the hardest, most beautiful work you will ever do, because it requires dismantling the old narratives that told you you were less than whole and replacing them with one immutable truth. You are enough, you are worthy, and you are whole, exactly as you are. This is your legacy, the gift born from suffering and tempered by love. And as you walk this path, remember, every step toward healing is a step toward freedom, not just for you but for everyone whose life you touch. So ask yourself, are you ready to be the healer you always needed? Because in that readiness lies the power to transform not only your own life, but the world around you. Chapter 20. You were always whole. For years, you may have carried a secret weight, believing that something inside you was fractured beyond repair, that the pieces you lost along the way left you incomplete, undeserving, or somehow less than the beautiful soul you were born to be. Maybe it was a childhood trauma, a relationship that cracked your trust, or a long season of self-doubt whispering that you are broken in a way you can't fix. And yet, here you are, at the edge of a new beginning, ready to hear a truth so simple and radical that it shakes the very foundation of your life. You were never broken to begin with. The cracks, the scars, the moments when the world told you not enough, these were not fractures in your essence, but invitations to remember who you really are. You see, wholeness is not a destination you arrive at after enough healing, or success or forgiveness. It is the essence beneath the pain, the unshakable core that has been there since the moment you took your first breath. I want you to imagine a great ancient tree standing tall through storms and seasons, battered but unbowed. Its branches may have bent, leaves may have fallen, and bark may have cracked, but the tree's root system runs deep and wide, nourishing life no matter what. That tree is you. Life's storms may bruise your branches, but they do not uproot your soul. Wholeness is your root system, unseen, silent, eternal. Maybe you've spent years searching outside yourself for approval, love, or a sense of belonging, hoping that one day you'll fix what felt wrong. The painful truth is, when we chase wholeness in the world's eyes, we risk missing the treasure buried inside. The world's definition of whole is often perfect, polished, and picture-perfect, but true wholeness lives in authenticity, in the messy beauty of your true self. It lives in your courage to show up, even when you're afraid, It lives in the moments when you hold your broken pieces with tenderness instead of judgment. When you realize this, the way you see your story shifts. The parts you thought were broken are revealed to be the cracks where light floods in. Your scars become maps of resilience, not signs of shame. You begin to understand that healing is not about making those cracks disappear. It's about letting those cracks become the place where your soul shines brightest. This truth changes everything. You stop chasing a version of yourself designed by fear and doubt, and you start living as the whole, radiant human you always were. And as you embrace this, something powerful happens. The compulsion to fix yourself softens, replaced by a radical acceptance that sets you free. The voice inside that once said, "You are not enough," falls silent, and in its place, a new voice rises. "I am whole. I am enough. I am deeply and irrevocably loved." This is not just a mantra. It's a life-altering revolution, because when you know you are always whole, you begin to live differently. You move through the world with grace, no longer burdened by the need to prove your value or hide your struggles. You become a beacon of light for others still searching, a living testament that wholeness is not about perfection, but presence. So here's the call to rise, not to become someone new or to erase your past, but to remember the truth that's been within you all along. Will you allow yourself to step into the fullness of who you are? Will you stop fighting against your own soul and start embracing the beautiful wholeness that is your birthright? You are not broken. You were never broken. You were always whole. And now it's time to live like it.